Hey everyone, today we're going to take a look at Data Doll. So Data Doll is a hero that historically has probably been considered to be the worst hero in the game. That's not an exaggeration because she really is quite bad. The 3 intellect is the most backbreaking part of this hero. It's the only hero in the game that has 3 intellect, and once you play with her you will understand just how important drawing 4 cards is, and even more important is when you only draw 3 but your opponent is still drawing 4. So until now she's pretty much been considered to just be, like a niche meme hero that people play if they enjoy her and they like more, janky playstyles, things like that. However, James White did say that she is a real contender with bright lights. Now, James White has said a lot of things, including that the Everfest potions were good and people didn't adapt enough in the Starvo meta. So we're gonna take a look at it today and see if he's, on the money or not. Now, I have actually gone in quite a few games. This deck is actually kind of addicting to play, and it actually doesn't feel that bad, surprisingly. I don't know if it's very good, but, she definitely has gotten a glow up considering how bad she was until now. So jumping into the list, if you do want to play this on Talishar, do know that the adaptive platings don't work for some reason. They're just not available in the equipment slots when you load it in the game, which kind of sucks because it does kind of hamper how much I'm able to judge the deck, because these things are very big, right? They let you galvanize, is just going to turn one of your items into a block 3, so you have that in your leg and your arm slot. At worst they block for 1, which is fine. But the really cool thing is that if, for instance, you get a boom grenade out and you crank it and your attacks don't hit, and so it's going to break on your next turn, you can just galvanize it with your adaptive plating and then block for 3. So actually, if you get full value out of the adaptive platings, you actually have 11 health on armor, which is like kind of nuts, honestly, when you think about it, because it does make up for one of Data Doll's weak sides, which is that she just can't block well at all. You just draw items, or even if you draw all 3 blocks, you only have 3 cards to defend with, so just being able to blow her out was pretty easy. So actually getting an incredibly high life total on armor is actually really cool. Running plasma pistol, you'll see why, because we're running the pistol items as well, because you can cheat those out into the field. Whenever we banish an item at 2 or less cost, so I think every single item in the game, I don't think there's 3 cost items, you're just going to get to cheat it and to play for free. However, this does kind of come at a downside, right? Because it means we have to run items. So for anyone who's been playing with Dash.io, you'll understand where we're going. You have to run items, but the problem is when you draw them in your hand, they don't block, and it's really, it's really a big problem, right? It's a little bit more difficult Data Doll because you really want to run so many that every time you banish off the top, you're seeing one. Like the thing with Dash.io is that you can run a tighter amount of items in your deck because you only can play 1 off the top every turn, right? So you only need to run enough that, if you're boosting 3 times using Foundry Heart, you're probably going to see 1 item off the top because that's all you need. But Data Doll is a more difficult deck building problem because you realistically want to have every card off the top of your deck being an item. And also, again, add 2 cost items doesn't, increase the amount of cards you can run. So we're trying a slight, very close to 50%, right? We're drawing 3 cards, so the math gets weird, but we're running, a little bit beyond half boost cards, and the other lesser half of the deck is all items, right? There's a couple considerations to this list, right? We're only running 0 cost boost cards. The argument for this is that part of the problem with Data Doll is that if you ever need to pitch for something, like you already needed to keep 2 cards, which already makes it difficult when you have 3, right? So if you had a zipper hit, now you need to keep 2 cards to play it. And that gets tough when you actually have to block something that your opponent is playing. And also, you don't really have a good resource sink for the other cards because you can't really do a whole lot with 3 cards, right? On average, one of them is probably going to be an item, so you could use it for pistol, but it gets dicey, right? So I've really enjoyed this list only having 0 cost boost, so it just means that I don't need to keep, extra cards. I can just play a 0 cost, hope I hit something off the top. So that's the boost package, right? These are all the 0 costs. Some of them have marginal good on hits for the deck, right? So Expedite's good for the deck. Sprocket Rocket can be a 0 for 4. T-Bone's just always kind of decent. And so the rest of it's just all items. Actually, the only non-boost card in here is going to be Soup Up. It's actually pretty good, right? Because if you break an item during your turn, or, like a boom grenade goes off and Soup Up comes in for 4th go again, or I believe with the resolution step, if you play a Soup Up and you have a boom grenade and they don't block it, the Soup Up gets go again. Also, this allows you to block 4 and galvanize something, which is quite good. This maybe could be a different card, but I've been impressed with it. So the attacks are very simple. What are the items? Well, we're running All of the new crank items, these give us extra action points that can let you pistol multiple times in a turn, or this is actually pretty cool. With extra action points, you can use microprocessor both times and then still play a final game action, because microprocessor, for anyone who hasn't read this card in a long time, you get 2 activations out of it per turn. It's basically like a planeswalker, but the second time you don't get the action point back. So the second time you have to decide if you want to close the chain with pistol, or if you want to play an item, or if you want to use microprocessor. So the cool thing with the crank cards is that you can get 2 action points, so you can actually use microprocessor, still swing pistol, play an item like this, and then use it in the same turn. So the crank items are quite good, right? Boom Grenade at red is a 0 for 4 if one of your attacks hits, right? Yellow is 3. You have Dissolving Shield. This is pretty good because it allows us to selectively block damage. We can choose, and then you can take off 2 counters, and then while it still has 1 counter, you can galvanize it with your adaptive plating. So between these 2 cards, you get 5 value out of it, which is pretty good, right? We have induction chambers, and in our little tiny sideboard over here, we have plasma purifiers, so that allows us to have the full pistol package combo, right? So we can go buff up our pistol with the plasma purifiers by 1, and then shoot multiple times, go again with the induction chamber. Mini Force Field is just a Ward 4 card with crank. We have Dissipation Shield, which is another Ward 4 card, but it's a little bit better because we get to choose when we want to cash it in. So the thing with Mini Force Field is, like, if your opponent attacks you for 1 and you can't block it, then the Mini Force Field blows up and you kind of waste 3 prevention. But Dissipation Shield is pretty cool because you can decide when you want to cash it in. Medkit is not sold on this card. Medkit could be replaced with something else, like it could be like Signal Jammer, right? It's like quite good in the Kano, who's relevant. Medkit was kind of interesting because you can boost it off the top, play it, and then if you ever have 2 action points, you can pistol and then still cash it in for the 2 life. The other thing too is that sometimes you're in a more defensive position as data dolls, so you could swing pistol, but maybe it's better just to use your action point to gain 2 so you're not dead on the next turn. So I've actually kind of liked Medkit, and the other thing too is if you really need to, you can just galvanize it, and it always stays on the table, so you can choose when you want to galvanize. The problem with some of these other cards is, like, Mini Force Field's going to pop, so it's hard to galvanize. Dissolving Shield, you have to have the right lineup to galvanize it correctly. Boom Grenade, you have to crank, and obviously you don't want to ever galvanize microprocessor unless if you have to. So the cool thing about Medkit is that it is just like passive life gain that also lets you cash in adaptive plating when you need to. Microprocessor is like the best card in the deck. If you can play this turn 0, like if you can banish off the top, or like if you can play it from hand, like I feel like your win percentage probably just goes up so much, because what it means is that, like, if you draw a hand and you have boost cards and an item, like a Tekla Pounder or something, you can just cheat it, right? Because you can just draw a new card, maybe it's even a boost card, which is even better, and then you just get to essentially put it on top and play it. So it's almost just like drawing a card every turn, and then sometimes you get lucky off the banish at the end and you just get to cheat a whole other item into play. It's like fantastic. Tekla Pounder, you know what this card does. It's good. It's 6 damage. So if you can cheat this into play, you're winning. The sideboard's a little iffy. So the biggest thing is you want plasma purifiers. This deck is susceptible to fatigue, obviously. You're very incentivized to banish all the time, so you want to have an answer to decks that want to full block you. So anytime you're in doubt, just run the purifiers and you're good. Payload is here as a popper for Prism. That is quite good with Boom Grenade, right? So if you can boost and then dominate a payload and it hits, you can sometimes push through 7 damage, which is enough to beat, lots of decks, especially ones that are trying to full block you. Our last sideboard card is just TikTok Clock. I don't know, right? Like, this is like good against Dash. This is your flexible slot. That can be whatever you want. Arguably even Payload is a flex slot. So if you want to try Plasma Mainline, you could do that here. If you want to try like Signal Jammer, you could do that here. If there's a card that you think is quite good, feel free to try that here. It's whatever you want it to be. This is my placeholder slot. This is a meta call based on what armor you're taking this to, who you think will be there. You can go through the mech list of cards and find an item that you think is good. Here are some potential changes to the deck, right? This could be Optical Monocle. Optical Monocle is kind of okay. The other consideration is Plasma Mainline. So the only thing I don't like about Plasma Mainline is that you do actually run a lot of items in this deck that don't actually get any use out of extra steam counters. Sure, like Plasma purifier, induction chamber, like if you can put a counter on those, it's fine, right? But it's not like super needed, right? So like this is like a setup card for the other items you get, but not all the items you get, you know, really benefit from having extra steam counters, right? So you would have to cut a card in the list, which I don't know what card exactly I would want to cut, right? Because if you go down the list here, like maybe you could cut a soup up, that might be fine, but then you're out on 4 block and 4 damage, you know, so that kind of sucks. So if you've been, you know, repping out this hero like crazy and you tell me like, no, you're wrong, Plasma Mainline's cracked, I could see it, right? I played a mirror and the other data doll got a Plasma Mainline and they got some good value out of it. I think they got like 3 value out of it. So, you know, seems like a good card. I just don't know what I want to cut for it. Maybe it's like this slot here, but like I said, like that's just like, that's your whatever slot. You know, that's me like saying there's gonna be a good dash player in my armory tonight, so I want to bring TikTok clock, but you know, it can be whatever you want it to be. So yeah, give the list a shot. Do not, once again, this is bugged on Talishar, so you'll have to run like some placeholder. You could even run, I mean, you could even run Bracers of Belief if you want to. So yeah, that's a deck. Actually seems quite good now, which is pretty cool to say, because Data Doll is a pretty interesting hero, just has not gotten love, and now she's got stuff to work with. So that's it. So until next time, thank you for watching.